Yo, it's your friend Dinner Dog, and I'm joined by Guinness the Bird, because we're going to talk about some birds. So we're going to be looking at the flea ladder today. So this is the strategy to get to the Power of Mist relic location out of logic by just using Leapstone. If you watch the recent Lycanthrope tournament, you may have seen a bunch of people go for this, and a number of people succeed. So it is something that can be worthwhile, and let's take a look in here on how we're going to make it happen. So the first thing we need to do is we need to understand the keep, then we need to understand the flea riders, and then we'll look at the standard strategy of how to use the ladder to get to the top. Then we'll look at an alternate strategy, which I think is really cool. And then, if need be, and you should never go for this, but it's possible to use flea ladder to get to the clock tower. It's potentially relevant to what we talked about in video 310, when you go to the keep with just Leapstone through the chapel and such. But it's not worth it, and essentially you do want to make sure you still grab the All Rocks teleporter. But if you end up in this situation where you don't have that teleporter and you need to get to the clock tower, we'll take a look at that. Then we'll look at some memes. Okay, so knowing that our goal is to get Power of Mist out of logic, we're going to need to do some dive kicks off of these Fleet Riders to get up to here to grab that bad boy, right? So observing what we've got here, the first thing we need to want to take a look at is that there are 8 Flea Riders, essentially, that are going to facilitate this. Now, 2 of them are a bit of a problem. So you see these ones up here. These 2 are a bit higher than the rest, and they're kind of like, they're playing defense up here. And if we were to just go straight up using a flea ladder, and these 2 flea riders are here, then we're going to run into a bunch of problems. They're going to hit us, we're going to fall, and it's never going to work, all right? So we're going to have to deal with these 2. Now, some other landmarks we can take into account are this broken statue signifies where the column is essentially that we want to go up on. So if you're to the right side of this statue, then you know you're not going to like bonk off this column. And if you go further than it, then you know you're going to be underneath the column we need to get to. So we want to stay to the right of this broken statue. It's going to take 4 flea riders for us to dive kick off to make it up here. So you can have more, but you cannot have less. A similar principle applies to the side here, except it's 5 fleas to get to the top. And you can see that this one here aligns with this this intact statue, but the one before it is broken. And we actually can, like, so the broken statue essentially is the area you want to be in, where if you were to make another, like, jump in midair, you can jump up here. We're actually going to start our ascent from this statue here, but we'll talk about that more importantly later. We're going to approach this strategy by going from this door to the side. We're not going to go from the top. We're always going to go for the bottom door. And as we're going through that, a good way to keep or a good way to keep track of where you are in this whole mess here is that there are 7 pillars from this one here to this other large one that are going to signify like what's coming next. So when I've been practicing this, you know, I'll say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the 7th one, I need to go. I just keep lucky 7 in my mind. You can really use anything to keep you going, or to keep your like sort of sense of geography where it needs to be. Because remember, there's gonna be a lot of things going on in your head when you try to do this in an actual race. So that's how I've done it. Have some sort of strategy, because it can be difficult to rely on this broken statue for a couple of reasons. In particular, because like we're gonna have to make some movements when we directly get here that are different from the other ones. Okay, so now let's understand the principles of the flea rider, right? So it's kind of like they're in the air, and like, you know, they're not grounded, so they kind of have to deal with like drift or ice physics. So like many enemies in the game, they're coming at you, right? Kind of like when we talked about Medusa heads earlier in this series. So their spawn points are gonna be stagnant, but they're always gonna be trying to fly towards you, right? So like this green dot kind of signifies you. So they're gonna try to fly towards you. Whether they hit you or miss, they're kind of gonna have to like turn around in this big swoop and then come back at you with the drift. So we're going to look to use that to our advantage later on. But yeah, just know that like they're not going to stop on a dime and come back at you. They're always going to like do this swooping motion to come back in. Typically, for starting a flea ladder, we're always going to want to be above them. So although we're going to be gaining height as we do the ladder, if there's a flea above us at any point, they're likely going to hit us. So ideally, the fleas are below us, and the closer to us they are in relative to their height, the more of a problem it's going to become. Flea riders can also return to their original position if it's off screen too long. So this isn't gonna be a big deal with the standard strategy, but for other strategies, it will. And so they don't necessarily despawn; they just kind of return back to where they were. The so you could be like you could go and get them again if you want, but it's gonna take too much time. All right. So just know the birds. The only way to, or not the birds, but the flea riders. The only way to really get rid of them is to kill them. And if they leave the screen, they're still there. They're just going back to their original location. Also, and probably most importantly, through all of this, your execution could be near perfect, but dive kicks are really tough, right? Like you've probably done book jumps, you've done other things, right? And the dive kick in SotN can be a bit problematic. Um, so using iframe items to get around the idea of like them hitting you first potentially, the can be beneficial, but it's only going to mitigate it to an extent. We're going to use iframes for another purpose as well, but just from a pure dive kick perspective, just know that like all this is going to be inconsistent just from this aspect alone. Okay. Now let's look at how this bad boy works. So every time we see an arrow, that's essentially just signifying a jump. And obviously if we have an arrow going down, we're going to be using a dive kicker, right? So how we're going to approach this is we're going to do double jumps into dive kicks going down to the ground to continue us going forward from right to left and to give us some speed. The flea rider is faster than our walk speed, and we don't want to get hit. And we also don't want to be like too close to the bottom here because we need to be jumping up at least a little bit to attract these other flea riders, all right? So we're going to do jump, double jump, dive kick, jump, double jump, dive kick, etc., right? We're going to do that on all these platforms here. You'll see here on these wider platforms that you can actually do 2 sets of dive kicks down onto them. I don't think that's necessarily required. I like doing that because it slows me down a bit to keep the flea riders on screen. But yeah, you don't need this. And like other people do this too. I mean, I'm saying it's me, but like, like we all learn from each other and stuff like that. Like I think when I was going through this, I looked at an example that Dragon Blitz did, and like all this stuff is on this channel. Like, I come up with some stuff, other people come up with other things. It's a community effort. So you're doing this here, and then you get to the pillars, all right? So we don't want to fall into these gaps. We want to stay on top of the pillars. So we're going to double jump on top of all of them once. And I like to count here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when I get to 7, I know, okay, now it's go time, all right? Alternatively, you could say the third big one, although I found that harder to keep track of. Or you could say, okay, when I see the broken statue, but it's going to come up on you really quickly. And like, again, all the things are going to be in your head. Like just have a strategy. I like counting. So when we get over here, these fleas 1 through 5 are going to be behind us. We're going to jump up towards the statue, and then we're going to dive kick to the right and hopefully hit a flea. This is where RNG is going to come in, all right? So you could do everything correctly, and either 5 or 4 is going to be too high, and they're going to hit you, and it's not going to work, even if you've done everything correctly, all right? So it is RNG dependent, and assuming that we've done that, we're then going to continue by double jumping to the right. We're going to dive kick off of a flea. We're going to do 1 jump to the left, to the right, and then we're going to jump to the left and then dive kick off of another flea. And the whole reason we're going to the side here is to deal with these 2 flea riders here, right? We need to get to the side and activate them in midair over here so that they start to come swooping towards us, and they'll come a bit lower so we can jump off them and they don't get in our way. And then through all this, the other fleas will have caught up, and you'll jump off another one and you'll get to the top. So we're going to come around and swoop through to avoid the problem of these 2 fleas being here. If we were to just come straight up, they would descend down us and hit us, and it wouldn't work, all right? So it is RNG dependent, and we're not going to deal with this 6th flea at all. I don't believe, unless like we go really far over here, that we're ever going to activate the 6th flea. Okay, so that's the standard route, and it's really good. So let's take a look at what this looks like here. So just like with other videos in the series, you're watching this on YouTube, you can hit the arrow keys to go back and forth by, I believe, 5 seconds, or you can use you can pause the video and use the greater than or less than buttons, or like like essentially comma and period, to go by 1 frame, which can be useful as well, or you can just use the settings to slow it down. So please do that at your leisure, and then just back up in the video if you need to. So here's how this bad boy works. We're going to do some dive kicks here. You'll see that the dive kicks when I'm doing 2 are shorter like I'm pressing double jump faster than before. We're going to get this here, jump, we've gone around, the other two have come up. We actually went over the other one, and then the original fleas get us there. And you can see that I had an iframe item equipped to potentially make it easier. I do find it difficult to remember to use it in the moment, but you do reduce the potential of getting or running into problems with the fleas by doing a dive kick and them hitting you as well. Unfortunately, I don't believe that using the iframe helps if you get bad flea RNG, because they'll be too high for you to dive kick off them anyways, and they'll still be higher than they normally should be. So even if you get off of one of them, then like another one might come and it'd still be problematic. So unfortunately, it is RNG dependent. But this is essentially how it works. This is like, any of these tricks are not extremely consistent, but I'd say like this is a great trick to do and to have in your repertoire. The again, RNG dependent, so if you get hit there, like it's fine. It's how it goes. But if you've ever seen The Price is Right and seen like the mini golf game they play, it's called hole in one or two. So we can do a hole in two here, right, friends? Okay, so there's an alternate strategy which you can either use in conjunction with the standard strategy if it doesn't work, or you could just go for this if you want to. Personally, I would try both. I would go for the standard strategy, and if I get bad RNG, then I would shift over to the alternate. Do keep in mind that the alternate requires the use of iframes. Or I mean, you could theoretically do it without, but it's going to be a mess. So do use iframes. Like use like an uncurse or something like that. So we're going to do exactly what we did before. But this time we're going to jump up, and instead of doing a double jump, we're just going to do a single jump off of pillar 7, and we're going to go down into this corner here, specifically right up against this pillar. But what that's going to do, it's going to summon the 6th Flea Rider. So for this trick to work, at least consistently, we want to get low. And because we're going to be going down here, we might as well get another flea into the mix. And that's going to help increase our consistency, right? So we're going to go to the side over here, and then the fleas are going to start descending down. They're going to start drifting down towards us, right? Because we've gone from, this height to this height here. So they're going to come swoop down, right? And as they come swooping down in a flock, we're going to use an iframe item to jump through them. You don't necessarily have to have the iframe item, but again, it makes it so much easier, right? So ideally, you're going to have 2 of them. So first, we're going to jump through them with the iframe item. We're going to get onto this pillar here, all right? Then what we're going to do, once we've got back onto this pillar, and now the fleas are going to be below us because they're going to have swooped down, and they're going to be trying to get back to us again, right? They're going to come down through the screen and then come back up, all right? We're going to double jump and then dive kick off of one of them, and then we're going to do that single jump, which is going to activate both of these fleas, all right? And you'll notice here that I've put getting hit. That's actually on purpose. You can avoid getting hit, but I like getting hit here. And the reason being is you jump up, you get hit, it's going to like keep you in the air a bit longer than you normally would be. And that's just to give all the fleas enough time to keep up with you so they don't leave the screen as much and you're less likely to get despawns. So then we're going to fall back down, all right? And that's actually really good. So we want to fall back down. So now that we're going down, 7 and 8 are now following us. So if we've done everything and it's worked out, we have 7 fleas coming down because we've sacrificed one to the flea gods already. And now they're coming down, all right, from a great height. So they're coming probably straight down because they've resolved their kind of drift and they're coming towards you, right? As they descend down onto you, you're going to use another iframe item, and you're going to jump through them. So they're going to come through you. And then they're going to probably spread out a bit, and they're going to start coming back towards you with that drift, right? And then you're going to use all them being beneath you to very conveniently get to the top here. It's very consistent once you get to this part. The only inconsistency afterwards is like if you kind of get screwed with the dive kick shenanigans. But it's very cool. It makes like the execution of going back and forth or trying to use diagonal dive kicks essentially trivial. So it is very cool, even if it takes a bit longer to set up. So, yeah, and here's like how that physics things work. I should have showed that earlier. But yeah, we're going to let them come down towards us and then come back up because we've gone lower than where we were before. Okay, so let's take a look at a demonstration here. So, doing the same things we were before, we definitely have iframes in our hand. So here comes number 7. We're going to jump down. The 6th fleet comes in. We go above. We get those guys to go through us here. Actually, I used the double jump, but not a single jump. And now we're just using straight dive kicks to get up here. And because we didn't double hit any of them, we actually avoided the, whatchamacallit. We avoided, like, needing more of them, but, you know, having extra fleas is a good thing rather than a bad thing. So here's the thing I want to point out before. When I did the jump off him, I double jumped here. At least it looked like that's what I did. Anyways, I can't rewind on this. Actually, no, maybe I can. Hold on. Can I go back here? Here. So, through, dive kick, and then another kick. Yeah. So it's more than just the dive kick. You do in the double jump. Okay, perfect. Sorry, my last example didn't show that very well in the visual. Any rate, so that's how we get up here, right? So it's very cool. And again, you don't want to say, oh, I'm just going to do the alternate, right? Try the standard, and if you get hit with bad RNG, you can then use this to recover. All right, so let's keep her going here. All right, so pros and cons. So the standard route is the fastest route, right? You're going to have to go to the left side anyways, especially if you've come from the clock tower, to check out where the relic is anyways, all right? So going over there doesn't cost you any time. The dive kicking and stuff is fairly fast to get over there anyways, and then you just give it a quick try. So like if it doesn't work, it costs you a couple seconds, no big deal, right? The only problem with that strategy is that it's flea rider dependent, and you could say a bit execution dependent as well, because like it can be a bit awkward with the diagonal kicks, and definitely takes some practice. The alternative method is also cool, especially because it takes some of those diagonal dive kicks away, so it makes it execution easier. You definitely want iframe items, which is a negative, right? And especially if it doesn't work, right? Like, you know, you only have so many resources that you could be using for other things, especially if the only iframe item you have is a mana prism, so it's a bit tough. You're more likely to get flea riders to return to their spawn point in this strategy. There's also a greater opportunity to kill several flea riders with one kick, hence why we try to get the 8th one involved, or the 6th one, and then we get 7 and 8. And really, because there's such a good likelihood to get hit, you're going to want some armor and defense, right? So fleas with 0 armor hit for 18, which sucks, and you're probably coming here early in the game for the strategy. So in Lycanthrope, it doesn't really matter. I think you're always going to hit for 1 or very few hits, because you'll have armor and a cape. But otherwise, you got to be careful with your health. So the alternate method, especially if you only have 1 iframe producing item, don't go for it unless you've got enough defense to tank through a few hits. Okay, so that's how that works there. Alternatively, we can get up to the clock tower, and the reason you'd want this is you've gone to keep through the chapel, and after getting whatever relics here, you still don't have flight. You cannot, with just Leapstone, jump up and get to the clock tower from there. It's too high. So the alternative method would be to jump off these fleas. Ideally, especially if you're using the 301 strategy, or the 310 strategy, sorry, you've opened the teleporter to Aurochs, so if you don't get flight here, like let's say you get a ring, or you get, you get the Jewel of Open, that you've got an ability to get out effectively, right? Like going back to Aurochs is fine. Going back to the entrance is not. Like you just lose the race then, all right? So this is a desperation play to get back on here. I would say that it's not consistent enough to avoid the teleporter in Aurochs. You would save some time if it was consistent, but like typically I don't think you'll save enough time. So do open the Aurochs teleporter. Come here, bird. What are you doing? Here, go back up here. There you go. Anyway, so this is how this works. So we're gonna essentially we're gonna ignore flea 7 and 8. We're gonna jump over here. We're gonna go and do the same thing we did before, and that's gonna attract the flea number 6. We need 5 to get up there, so 6 is insurance. And then when they come over, we're going to ideally iframe abuse, although it's not required to get through them and stay ahead. You can just tank hits, but it's awkward. And then once we're ahead of them, we're gonna do the same thing going back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start our ladder from the second platform here, okay? So you start from here, and then you're going to like do diagonal jumps up. Alternatively, or like the easiest way to set it up, although it makes the ladder a little less consistent, is to jump onto this platform and then this platform and then start it. What I found to be more consistent from a ladder perspective, although harder to set up, is to go down onto these platforms and jump from this smaller platform or pillar up to the top. The problem with this jump is that it's very tight. So if you cut short your either your initial or second jump, you're not going to make it, and that's going to be a problem. You're going to have all these birds descending on you, and it's a big problem, right? So it's a bit tight. I'm going to show you examples that have both, but if you do pull it off, it makes getting up here a bit more consistent. Okay, so let's take a look at some demonstrations. So this is going to be getting up there with a potion, and then it's going to take the top route when we go back to these platforms here. So we're doing all the same things we were doing before. Here comes number 7. We're going to jump down, go down, use our iframes to get over. They're going to loop back behind us. Now we're leading the flock. Jump over here. And now we start our ascent up. This one's going to go fairly good in that we don't need to use an extra flea rider. Alright? And now for the alternate strategy, where we don't have a potion, just to show you that it works, and then to show you going from the bottom to the top here. There we go. Get down here. We're going to tank a whole bunch of hits. We almost got over that one person, but that's fine. So we just wait. The big thing with the flea riders is to be patient sometimes, especially with the alternate strategy. There we go. We killed 2 there, unfortunately. Otherwise, we make it up. And look at the gap between where we did the last jump and getting to the platform there. There's a significant amount of space, but because there's nothing above us, it's not really a big deal, and we can use the full length of our jump to get over. Alright, so that's how those bad boys work there. Again, you don't want to be going to the clock tower by design. It should be something in your back pocket, potentially, if you run into problems and you've made a mistake to recover. Alright, let's end off with some memes, alright? So the flea rider enemy, like, the enemy is the flea, not the bird, right? Or it looks like a seagull, right? But the flea is the enemy, right? Just like we see in the clock room, right? Look what's going on here, right? Like, this flea is clearly in charge. It's got a rope around the bird's neck. Like, that's brutal, right? So the bird is our friend, right? The flea is the enemy. And unfortunately, the bird just becomes a casualty of us getting to the flea, right? Because the flea is too powerful. We can't let it live. So birds are great, especially owl, right? The owl is like the only enemy in the game where someone will mourn its loss if it dies, right? So the fleas are the ones that are jerks. Crows in the chapel are also jerks, but otherwise we love birds, right, Guinness? Mwah. All right. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this one here. So as always, we'll have any corrections or if anyone has any other strategies, put them in the comments there. And we will see you in the next one. So hope you have a great day, and cheers, eh?